What is going on, Raptors Nation? It is Luca here, back with another video. Hope you're all doing well on this Saturday. Thought I would just do a quick live here as the Raptors, they are coming off a loss against the OKC Thunder. They will be in action tomorrow for a Super Bowl matinee game. The Raptors are going to be taking on the Rockets at 2 o'clock. But I wanted to hop on the stream because, I'm feeling a lot better. I'm feeling more optimistic about the Brandon Ingram trade. And I just wanted to talk about Ingram being introduced, Bobby Webster addressing the media. Ingram's with the team on the road trip. He's expected to meet with the medical staff. We're going to know more, I would assume, soon about how much time he's going to miss. But one of the biggest things with the Brandon Ingram trade was, of course, what the Raptors' direction was going to be, what their plan was going to be following the trade. At first, I thought it was a win-now move. I thought they were going to be going for the play-in this season and squandering their potential chances at the upcoming 2025 NBA draft, which is very coveted. But Bobby Webster, he addressed the media and basically put guys like me in a good spot with what he said. And assuredly, what do you know? Bobby Webster confirmed that this trade for Brandon Ingram does not ruin the team's, now he called number one priority. And, that is going to be the 2025 NBA draft. So it seems like the Raptors still have their sights set on the draft. It seems like they're going to ethically tank, maybe strategically have guys in and out of the lineup. And I think that's the right move. I think looking at it from that perspective, that is such a genius plan where you get Ingram for cheap. You're going to sign him. Hopefully it's a team-friendly deal. If not, you're going to have to make the money work. We'll get to that a little bit later. But you have him, and this is just for next season. And, if the Raptors are able to land a top 5 pick, then they're really cooking. And the Raptors, I'm going to probably follow their tankathon from here on out. But they lost. The Nets won and the Hornets won. So it was a successful tank night for them. But yeah, you look at the long-term plans for this team. I think it's the smart decision. I think it's wise for that to be the case. And, Brandon Ingram, do not rush him back. We're going to see him at some point. I'm not questioning that. It's just a matter of when, but definitely don't rush him back. But the Raptors right now, they're depleted. They're still without Yak. They're still without RJ. They obviously traded some of their depth pieces to get Ingram. So they're going to be in a position to lose a lot more. 9 of their next 10 come against playoff-esque teams. Their schedule gets really easy toward the end of the season. So that's going to be interesting to see how the Raptors handle that, assuming Ingram's in the fold. So maybe they're going to have to sit guys and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, if the Raptors play this right, you get into that top 5, it's going to make for a great situation. But of course, you got to make the money work. And Blake Murphy, he put out a nice piece, which basically breaks it all down. And, the Raptors are going to then have to make a decision about, okay, do we want to be a tax team with this group? Because they're going to have to pay your future pick. If it's a first round pick, it's a lot more money than, let's just say, if it's a 10th overall pick. Or are you going to potentially move somebody, which is going to allow things to flow a lot more smoother from a financial standpoint? But of course, the Raptors don't have to address that now. I think the Raptors' approach now is just get through these final 29, 30 games of the season, put yourself in the best position come draft time, play the young guys, develop them. Player development is definitely going to be on the forefront. We've been seeing that with guys like Walter getting more minutes. Mobile is going to be, you would think, a staple of the rotation. Jamison Battle, congrats to him, got a standard contract. He got his two-way to a standard, so we're going to see more of Battle. He had a nice game against the Thunder. Orlando Robinson now gets Battle's two-way. So you're going to see guys like that. You're going to see a lot of young players now get ample opportunities. And I think that's fun. I think from a fan's perspective, yeah, it might be rough for the next couple of weeks, last 2 months here, but you just got to sell yourself on the vision. And basically how I'll put it is this, this is the last time we got to entertain tank talk, ethical tank talk, if they do it right this time. If they do it right this time, they're going to be in a good position. And by all accounts, they're going to be ready to compete next season. I'm not saying this team's going to be a contender next season, but they're going to be able to compete. I for sure see them as a playing team. at the minimum going into next season if they get a top pick and everybody stays healthy. So yeah, for the rest of the season, that's what it should be. Play the young guys, try to lose, and at some point see what Ingram looks like with the rest of your players, because you do want to see that. You don't want to wait till next season to see Ingram play alongside Scottie Barnes. But it was nice to see Ingram, talk to the media. He did mention defense, which is great, talking about his versatility on both ends of the floor. He had an awesome picture with Scottie Barnes. They were dabbing each other up, and that's awesome, because that is the future of the Raptors. 4-3, can they develop into a dynamic duo? And I thought it was interesting too during that press conference with the media. Bobby Webster talked about the fit with Ingram and Barnes, saying Scottie wants to share the ball, Brandon wants to score the ball. So that's how I envision this duo once the Raptors made the trade. I think Ingram's going to be that alpha, that go-to guy, closer, and Barnes is going to get to play more of his natural game, defensive-minded, playmaking, offensive hub. So I'm excited to see what those guys have in store. Obviously, we'll see how it all works with RJ. As you guys know, I'm skeptical about that trio kind of working, but they could definitely prove me wrong. Hopefully quickly shows us a lot more. I know he's been struggling a little bit. He didn't have the best of games against the Thunder, but yeah, I mean, these last, stretch of games before the All-Star break, they're going to be tough. So going back to the Raptors not having a whole ton of wins upcoming, they lost against the Thunder. They're going to be taking on the Rockets tomorrow. I don't expect them to win that game. Sixers have been playing better. I don't expect them to win that game. And they got the Cavaliers on Wednesday. So potentially the Raptors could lose 3 more times before they're off for a week. And then they have Heat, Suns, Celtics, Pacers coming out of that break. So again, playoff-esque teams. But then, you go look towards the end, and they're going to be seeing the Wizards a bunch of times. The Blazers, the Spurs are in there, the Hornets. So it will be interesting to see how this team kind of manages things towards the end of the season. But I think it's safe to say, like, this team's intention is the upcoming draft. And, Bobby Webster said it's our responsibility to go out there and draft the right players, find Scottie Barnes the right pieces. And, yeah, I'm excited. I think there's a lot to be excited about. I think if you're a Raptors fan, this is kind of like the last bit of, okay, we got to eat dirt, sit it through. And then, next season, it's going to be guns a-blazing. I'm really interested to see how this team's going to look next season, the finalized version of them. But I think this team can be a fringe playoff team if all goes well. Again, talking about the draft, and we'll see if any big changes come. I know they don't have to touch it yet, but like RJ is eligible for a extension. I don't know if they're going to give him that when you just have Scottie's big contract going to officially hit. You're paying IQ. You're going to have Brandon Ingram's next big contract. So will they potentially make a trade in the summer? But in terms of like outside of that, like the main priority for the summer is Brandon Ingram's contract. Signing him, I have no doubts the Raptors are going to be able to do that just because, it seems like Ingram wants to be here, and the Raptors were not going to trade a first-round pick if they didn't have the utmost confidence of re-signing Ingram. So that's going to be priority number one after the draft. And then, there's going to be some other things they got to do to just kind of round out the roster. And they're going to be limited with their money. They're going to be limited with their money on what they can do when you're talking about paying their draft pick, paying Brandon Ingram, and then they're still going to have a little bit more money for 3 roster spots. Chris Boucher is an unrestricted free agent, so he's probably in all likelihood not going to be brought back. So, that'll lessen some money there. Garrett Temple, I believe, is a UFA. They'll see what happens with him. Maybe they bring him back for like dirt cheap because there's value in having Temple around. And it's funny because Temple and Ingram, they actually were together in New Orleans. So they have some familiarity with that. And yeah, so all in all, I mean, that's what is probably, going to be on the horizon for this basketball team as they navigate the next chapter in all of this, right? It's a new era for this Raptors team. Seeing them go through, I guess you can call it a sped up rebuild. Last season was brutal. This season, I wouldn't say is as bad as last season because we have the big trade for Ingram, and this team has shown you some progression. So it's not as bad as last season, but overall, it's still pretty bad. I mean, when you look at the team's record, I don't think anybody would say a 16-36 record is considered good, but there's optimism moving forward. I think next season, there's a sense of belief that this team can for sure make the play-in, and maybe they can all of a sudden surprise people and really turn the corner. But I think for them, they can't mess this up. You gotta be bad. You gotta be bad. And I'll pull it up right now, but you wanna stay in that bottom five. So you don't want to get these essentially meaningless wins down the stretch. That's gonna really hurt your tank because the Raptors, made this trade, and even Webster touched on it. Like, they gotta really try their hardest to stay at the bottom. So I'm just going to pull up the standings here. But guys, drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you're new. Let me know if you have any questions. Impromptu live stream here, just talking about the latest from the Raptors and what it all means. And I did want to mention too, PJ Tucker's not reportedly going to join the team. So Tucker's going to, in all likelihood, be bought out. Of course, the Raptors waived Wiseman. They saw value in having a roster spot. Wiseman is out for the season with an Achilles. So it sucks for Wiseman. I really hope he gets another shot somewhere down the line with another team. And yeah. Let me present this. So you see here, guys, the Nets actually got a big win yesterday. That was good. But the Raptors, they're right there at 16 wins. The Hornets won 2, which is massive. The question is, can they pass the Hornets? Like, right now, they're 1.5 back in the reverse standings. That's realistic, though. Like, that is realistic. I think this is where it becomes unrealistic. I think these guys are shutting it down in the Pelicans. The Jazz are going to be really bad, and the Wizards are in their own category of being bad. Although they did win. I think they won to snap their or they've won 3 in their last 10, which is crazy. Yeah, I didn't even realize that. But nonetheless, I don't think they're gonna catch up with the Jazz, Pelicans, Wizards. The Hornets could be a stretch, so maybe you get lucky there. You can move up into the bottom 4. But of course, when looking at it, the tankathon right now, you look at the odds, guys. The Raptors have the 5th worst record, as we mentioned. They've lost 3 in a row. Right now, if the season ends today, they would have a 42.1% chance to get into the top 4, a 10.5% chance to get into the top 1, the number 1 pick. Just for fun here, let's sim this. Wow. All right, I hope this doesn't happen. It has the Sixers winning the lottery and the Raptors falling to 8. Yeah, let's hope that doesn't happen. But let me pull up Blake Murphy's article. I think that's interesting. We can kind of go through it together. What did I do? Sorry, guys. I'm trying to share my screen here. I don't know why it exited out. Oh, I shared the wrong tab. All right, there we go. That should work. Luka, player that I was thinking that the Raptors could get if they aren't in the top 3 is VJ Edgecombe. He seems like a type of player that Masai would be. I like Edgecombe. I said that on my last stream. I think Edgecombe would be a nice player to get if you're not going to get into the top 3. I would say he's probably going 4 or 5. Maybe he falls to 6. No worse than 6th, since the Nets are very bad. Yeah, you're looking at bottom 6 for the Raptors, but of course you want to try to move on up. Like I said, I'm holding out hope for this team remaining in the top in the bottom 5. Why do we drop Wiseman? I kind of liked it. Yeah, I it made me look dumb. I'm like, I kind of like the Raptors taking a flyer on him, taking a chance. But I assume the Raptors dropped him because they value an open roster spot. Wiseman obviously took up a roster spot for the season because he's injured. So I think the Raptors didn't see value in holding on to him. I know next season he was still under contract. He had a team option, I believe. But yeah, Raptors parting ways with him. Obviously, doing a little bit of work with converting Battle to the standard. Robinson's on the two-way, and I believe they still have one more spot opened. So we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, I mean, Wiseman, hopefully he figures it out. I really hope he turns it around. So yeah, I wanted to show you guys this article just because like Murphy basically did a good job outlining it. I'll let you guys read it on your own. But I wanted to just focus on this, fitting all the pieces together under the cap. So yeah, so basically he's assuming Wiseman is cut, which happened, and Tucker, which is about to happen. Boucher, no extension, and then Garrett Temple aren't retained. Let's assume Battle's NBA deal includes a minimum salary. We'll assume Barnes doesn't make all NBA, which is fair. So this is basically what we got going like for the 2025-2026 season. So quickly, yeah, that's a big number when you look at it compared to everything else. But quickly, 32. Barrett, he is eligible for an extension this summer. Jakob, 19. Barnes, his contract kicks in, his new contract. Grady, Abaji, Jacoby, Mobo, Shed. And then that's your total, new total, the cap space, the tax base. So Murphy writes Raptors would have 139.2 million committed to 10 players before Ingram and their pick. And then you'll see they have about 48.8 million under the luxury tax in this example. This has to cover Ingram, their pick, and the final 3 roster spots, whether they be second rounders, vet minimums, and a mid-level piece or trade. And then this is where what I was talking about earlier. The cost of their draft pick is a big swing. If they land the number 1 pick, it'll cost an estimate of 13.8 mil. If they fall to number 10, it'll be 6.1 mil. So keep that in mind for the following here. And basically, they would have 39 million if they get the number 10 pick for Ingram and 3 final roster spots. If they get the number 1 pick and flag, they would have just an estimated of 34.9 million for Ingram and their final 3 spots. So that's very, very, very limited. And then he talks about tweaking it. Obviously, Brandon Ingram team-friendly deal would go a long way. And then, of course, they could just spend into the tax. And I found that interesting when Bobby Webster addressed the media. He didn't seem stressed when talking about potentially going into the tax. But they've only done it, as outlined here, when they won a championship. So, I mean, it's not wise to be in the tax when you're not close to being a contender. And then they don't have to be under the tax until the final day of the season. So, and then the last thing he outlines here, which I found interesting, and I talked about in the video I dropped today on my personal channel, is the other option, which kind of makes things easier. He says breathe easier, which is very, very true. Is that they consider moving off from someone. So Barrett, he's gonna be pricey, especially if they extend him. And then they could eventually move off from somebody from the core. So whether that's quickly, whether that's Barrett, if I had to make a prediction, it is Barrett. But of course, we'll know more of how the draft, I think, falls for the Raptors. I think, however that goes, like we could see this team move off from one of those guys to just make everything breathe together a lot better. But of course, nothing is imminent. This is all speculation. And we'll see what happens with that. But all in all, I mean, the Raptors, they got their core. They're going to pay Ingram. And basically, they're banking that the only thing of value they gave up for Ingram, with all due respect to Bruce Brown and Kelly Olynyk, is that Pacers 2026 first rounder. And you're basically betting that pick's not going to turn into anything substantial. And again, I don't anticipate it to. If the Pacers are a top 6 team next season, which I think is plausible, I don't see them dropping off like heavily. That pick's probably not going to be significant. So at that point, the actual trade looks great and will continue to look great. But of course, you got to make this all work. And the next kind of puzzle piece after the draft is Brandon Ingram's contract. And again, it's all going to come down to the number and then trying to make everything work after that. Would be good to Paris. I think that's how you say his name. Hey, Luca, that quickly contract, huge. Yeah, in hindsight, either quickly or RJ is gone. We'll most likely find out during the draft. Yeah, exactly. I think if they go, like, honestly, the Raptors, they need a 3-and-D type guy in this lineup. I think that's what they desperately need. Like, let's just say you keep quickly, you have BI, you have Scotty, you have Yak. Can they get a 3-and-D type player in the draft or just address that? Like, they need that. Like, they need that kind of mold of a player. But I agree. I think whoever they go after in the draft, that's might signal the end of RJ or IQ. But again, I would lean more towards RJ being the odd man out in all of this. And I think by the Raptors giving IQ his deal, there was a level of faith in him. I think they saw this before making the Ingram trade. Like, with all due respect to RJ, I'm not saying the team's giving up on him or anything. This is all speculation. But I believe that they probably viewed IQ and Scotty as kind of like that tandem. Because, like, you look at that IQ contract, man. And I'm not even like, we could shift some of the criticism to IQ. Who knows what that contract looks like? Like, in hindsight, it doesn't look good. Like, as of today, that contract does not look good at all. Obviously, it's early. It's 1 year into the contract, but 1 year is burned into that contract, really, if you think about it with the injuries. Quickly hasn't played up to the standard that you would hope. You're cutting him slack because he just got back from injury. But yeah, like, that contract might end up looking terrible, right? So that's an ongoing thing. Like I said, RJ's extension eligible this summer. What kind of money would he be looking for if the Raptors did want to keep him here long term? Contractually, it's very interesting to see how things are going to fall into place. So, but you would hope they have, you would hope they have something, a plan in place, and they have a sense of what their idea of what they're doing. And honestly, the Raptors work like that. They're one of probably the few teams in the NBA that make a deal to set up their next deal. Like, Masai's always thinking ahead. Like, look at the Siakam deal, for instance. That did not look like a good trade initially. You're like, what the hell? Like, you're giving up an all NBA guy for like a future pick that might not be worth anything, and Bruce Brown, and like those pieces that they got back. I know one of them ended up being Jacoby Walter, but like, look at it now. Yeah, one of those pieces, Jacoby, he used one of those picks to get Abaji, and then the Grand Slam is using the remainder of that, which was Olynyk and Brown, to get BI. So now all of a sudden, that trade return for Siakam is Jacoby, Abaji, who are two young guys in your rotation, and BI, who could potentially be your team's best player. So, looking at it from that perspective, that's a really good trade. But initially, it didn't look hot at all. So my point is, the Raptors always operate with like their next move in mind. So yeah, you might be right. Like, maybe they already have something lined up with or predetermined for Barrett or Quickly. But we'll see what happens about that. I think for the Raptors, the next thing to get through is these last weeks of games to try to put themselves in the best position for that draft. But there's definitely a lot of excitement and optimism. I know, like, personally speaking, I haven't been this optimistic about the Raptors for a couple years, like for a while, I would say. Like, I think kind of like after the Ingram trade, I was a little bit skeptical, as you guys know, but once Bobby Webster kind of said it, he made it crystal clear about this team's intention. I'm like, okay, they basically can kill two birds with one stone of getting talent and also trying to get young talent in the draft. Is the lottery in May? Yes, I believe so. Bulldog, what's going on, my boy Luca? What's word, gang? I'm always seeing it on your way out. All these, the only one that keeps it real, man. You don't kiss. We all just yeah, man. Appreciate that. I definitely don't have any agendas for players or anything like that. I give you my take and my opinion on how I see things and let things play out. But appreciate you being in here. Appreciate that, Bold. I really, really appreciate that. And guys, yeah, I'll be using this Raptors Nation YouTube channel to do a lot more of these live streams. So you'll see these live streams pop up. And usually I'll go live when there's no game. So in between the games. But I really appreciate it, guys. Drop a like, subscribe to the channel. You can follow my other Raptors content on my personal channel, Luca Rosano. That's where I do more like editorial videos now, where like you guys see I put highlights and music and all that, and I kind of make it into like a nice little editorial piece. I script those for the most part, but this is good on here. It's just free flowing Raptors content, live streams, videos off the cusp, and yeah. Make sure you are subscribed to this channel and my personal channel. Yo, Rap. What's going on, Payne? I don't think they will trade RJ or quickly in the offseason because when Bobby was talking, he was talking about Ingram fits in with Scotty, RJ quickly, and Jakob. Well, I think what's interesting is we're going to see that. Like I said, we're going to see that at some point. Call it March. Don't take my word for it, but I have a feeling like maybe closer to March, we'll see a full Raptors team. And that's important because you want to see what Ingram gives you. And there is a chance the Raptors don't like what they see for Ingram, and they could entertain sign and trade options for him. I'm not saying they're going to do that. I'm just saying that is in the realm of possibilities, which is why it's important to see Ingram early on. But also, the more likely reason is to see how he fits with those other puzzle pieces. So you get an idea like, okay, maybe he works out really well with RJ and Scotty, and there's something there. And then you're okay in dipping into the tax because you think this group right now can become something special with a draft pick. But maybe it's just a horrendous fit. You get a sample size of that, and then it's easier to justify your next decision. That's the $1 million question right now. I guess for my accounts, I predict RJ's the odd man out, but we'll see, right? Like they like him. He enjoys it here. He's been playing well. And what I just said, like if there is potential there and they see RJ playing really well in this system, I think they would entertain keeping him here long term. I think it helps that, he's from here too. You're going to get his loyalty and get his all. So he's really upped his game here. I mean, if RJ was having a terrible tenure, I'd say it. But like, let's call it for what it is, right? Like, I'm not going to excuse quickly for the injuries because we can use the same excuse with RJ. But you look at RJ and IQ, let's just put it down to the basics. Who has impressed you the most since the trade went down? It's been RJ. And you can say IQ hasn't been healthy, but when you just look at the games they've played and what they've been healthy for, RJ has definitely been the better player than IQ. And I always thought it was going to be IQ who, was the one outshining RJ, but it's been the other way around. And they say, right, like availability is the best ability. And for you to stay healthy is the best thing you could get for a team. I appreciate that, Bulldog. I really, really do, man. Yeah, well, it's just about the vision. It's about the vision of this team. It's about, what's next with the draft. And then, yeah, like rotation is going to be very interesting. Right now, their starters. And then, you know, you're going to have some key pieces from off the bench. Grady's now going to go to the bench. Jacoby is going to be there. You're going to have Abaji. So there's some pieces there, Shed, Mobo. The Raptors can end up having like a really sound team next season. I think they definitely need another big. That's going to be something they got to address. Maybe Orlando Robinson performs really well, and he's a long-term fixture of this rotation because you definitely need another big behind Jakob Poeltl with Kelly on his way to New Orleans. But there's definitely pieces there. Shed has come along, Jacoby, Grady, Abaji, all those guys have had nice little stints, and those are going to be your bench pieces now. With your starters being obviously, Poeltl, Barnes, Ingram, Barrett, and Quickly. I believe they waived James Wiseman because they value a roster spot for this season versus having a guy who was unavailable to them. So it was confusing, I'm not going to lie, but sometimes that happens. A deal will happen that just leaves you scratching your head. I'm surprised we didn't make calls about Lively. I don't think the Mavs would ever trade Lively. He's their franchise center, especially since they made the AD trade. Like Lively and AD are going to be spectacular together. We didn't get to see it today because Lively's injured, but yeah, I don't think the Mavs are going to give up Lively. And what would that deal even be? I don't see the Mavs wanting RJ or Quickly or any of our young guys compared to Lively. What are the chances we put our top 5 pick on our bench? As much as that sounds odd, it depends who they get. I think if you get one of those top 3 guys, they're definitely going to be a starter. And then again, that goes back to, okay, maybe you have to trade one of these guys now. But if they're getting like number 6, let's say, that guy could, be a bench guy for now. Yeah, that's true. But I mean, to trade Luka and Lively in the same deadline, like Nico Harrison already got death threats. I could only imagine what would have happened if he traded Lively too right after. I feel like the Mavs value their bigs though, and defense. I think that's the number one thing. Nico flat out said it. Defense wins championships when he made the trade, or after he made the trade for Luka involving Luka. So that defense definitely looks very, very scary for that team. Yeah, that's why I feel like the Raptors were very reluctant to give up Poeltl. Like, if you give up Poeltl, it's tough to get another big nowadays or like a reliable big. And we see it. The Raptors are 0-7 without Poeltl this season. He definitely makes the team better, but it's tough with the center market. It literally happened a week ago today. Actually, I just realized that the Luka Doncic trade, crazy man. I still can't believe it either. Literally happened a week ago today. There was like an insane. I think it was something over like 200 players traded. Potentially. I mean, I don't think you can ever count out Masai. So potentially, and maybe that's where you. But I don't know if I don't know. Can that get you into the top? RJ paired with like the number 8th pick. Yeah, it sucks. I was actually watching that game. I hope it's nothing serious. They gave up a lot for him, I think. But I'll be honest, I didn't watch a whole ton of Williams, maybe because he's on the Hornet. He was on the Hornets and the Hornets suck, but I didn't realize like how good his numbers are. So the Lakers are betting big on him. They think that he can be their center of the future. I didn't realize how young he is still, 23. So they did give up a lot. Connect, I think, is definitely going to end up being a good role player, and Reddish. But that first pick, I was shocked. Like, I can't believe they didn't end up giving up that first pick too in the Luka deal, and they're able to use that to get another essentially franchise guy. Can you tell me who the Raptors to draft? Well, if I had it my way, I like Ace Bailey and Dylan Harper. Like one of those two guys I'd be happy with, like ideal. Like I'm not gonna sit here and say they're gonna get Flag. I feel like they have ideas for Flag with another team, but not to say I'm like some sort of draft lottery conspiracy guy, but yeah, Dylan Harper or Ace Bailey. I think a lot of Raptors fans would love that. 5. At least top 3 will put them in a great spot. Yup. Yeah, and that too. They're going to be a tremendous lob threat. Look what he did with Lively and Gafford. What do you think he's going to do with a 23-year-old monster of a center? I think that's a really good duo. I think, yeah, they complement each other perfectly. Do you think with the Suns turmoil, IQ, RJ picks for Booker, draft, and PG, if we get top 4? Wait, what? IQ, RJ pick? No, they're not trading Booker, man. I feel like there's not too many untouchables, but the Suns have repeatedly said they're not moving Booker. I think they trade KD next, though. Yeah, that's the vision right there, man. Bailey, BI, and Scotty. Even Edgecombe would be nice. I agree, John. We should have tried to trade for Robert Williams. They say this is the biggest trade deadline in history. Oh, it definitely is. You think Masai and Bobby are going to try to get multiple picks in this year? They could. They could. I wouldn't count that out. With the way Bobby was talking about this upcoming draft, it seems like they're very high on it, and they've been doing a lot of research. So, seems like this is a draft they've had in mind for a long time now. If we get Ace, RJ has to go. Yeah, that's a classic example, right? Of like you draft a guy and all of a sudden he replaces a current guy in your roster. But what happens with Dylan Harper? Do you replace IQ, or could you play IQ and Harper? Probably not. I think it's one or the other. I like that the Raptors' first round picks are intact. That's what I really like. And going back to the first they gave up for Ingram, remember, it's not their first. So I like that the Raptors' first round picks are intact for the next couple of years. And even their seconds for the most part. Hey Quincy, what's going on? Says New Orleans native here. Y'all got a great dude in BI. Well, we're gonna treat him well, man. I'm not gonna lie. I like the Pelicans. I tuned into a lot of Pelicans games because I was a big fan of Ingram, who now the Raptors have. Really like Zion. I'm talking like when you guys had that very, very enticing, promising core with Lonzo in the mix, Drew Holiday. Like I was convinced the Pelicans were gonna figure it out, man. I wish it worked out better for you guys, but hopefully you guys got something cooking now. You got some good young pieces in Trey Murphy. I like a lot. Herb Jones. We'll see what happens with Zion, DeJounte. Maybe that's a team too. If the Pelicans stay back, like they should tank. If I'm the Pelicans right now, like pack it in, and I think they signaled that by trading BI. Pack it in and try to get a top pick. Because if a top pick lands with them, that team might be a problem next season. I could see the Pelicans having the same type of like leap as the Grizzlies did, where they're bad for one season and then they're back on their feet the next season in a big way. Are the Raptors going to trade RJ? We'll see, man. I know a lot of people don't want to see that. I like that Barnes is no longer the first option. He will be. Yep. I think it's going to work out for both guys. I think Ingram will thrive because he's going to be like the legitimate one here. And I feel like he's always been overshadowed. Not to say like, he wasn't on the same level as Zion when he was healthy, but like it was always like, I feel like it's always been considered Zion's team, right? And even before that, he was so young to be considered obviously a big time player. But now I feel like he's really going to take the reins. Like he could really seize the moment. And I know a lot of people don't want to admit and say, oh, this is still, Scotty's still the number one option. I believe wholeheartedly it's Brandon Ingram. You can still say it's Scotty's team with how much he does for this team offensively and defensively. He's still the most impactful player, arguably, on this roster. But I think Ingram is undoubtedly the number one now, and Scotty's going to be that second fiddle. And I think that's going to work out great. There's nothing wrong with that. Like, I know you pay Scotty a lot, but hey, if he's going to be your best defensive player and still be a great playmaker and get his on offense, and he's going to make Ingram's life easier as well and your other teammates' life easier, like that's an A+ to me. That looks like a potentially brilliant fit if they go down to, Ingram being that scorer and Scotty being that facilitator. And I feel like it's unfair to Scotty too. I feel like for as much as we want him to become this great 3-point shooter and offensive spark plug and go for 25, average 30 a game, I just don't think that's him. I always viewed Scotty as like a Scottie Pippen type of sidekick. Like that's what I always saw Scotty Barnes' ceiling. I never was bought into this guy can be, the 1A superstar. And like he doesn't need to be that. Like I'm not saying Ingram's going to turn into a superstar, which is important to get a top pick in the draft because maybe that kid becomes something, but I think this pecking order I'm liking a lot better than what it was before. Yeah, exactly, Bob. It looks really good on paper right now. The fact that they're not pushing for the plan and they basically said it without saying we are tanking for the rest of the season, I think that puts them in the driver's seat. Yeah, there's high hopes for them for sure. Yeah, well, that's what I'm interested to see, Dario. I'm not sold on it yet. I think there's a lot of redundancy there with Barrett, especially, but maybe it works out brilliantly. Maybe Barrett ups his 3-point shooting. Maybe Barrett, I'm not saying going to turn into a 3 and D, but maybe he plays more of that role now. Remember, the Knicks wanted him to be that guy, but then he kind of showed you more of his game of being that aggressor, get to the basket. Maybe Barrett can be a little bit of both now and really commit defensively because they're going to need that. Like I said earlier, they're going to need that kind of 3 and D mold. Yeah, they drafted him in 2006. Yep, straight buckets. Scotty and BI, pick and roll going to be nasty. Career high in assists, Scotty. I guess it would. Yeah, I guess you could say it would be likely. That's tough to say right now, man. I don't really have an idea of what that would look like, to be honest, right now. Like, who could even use RJ right now? I'm trying to think off the top here. I guess some contending teams. Ace Bailey's a guard. Like he plays more of like a small forward guard. Ace Bailey straight buckets too. Like that guy doesn't pass. So, but yeah, Ace Bailey's a guard forward. Not sure where you saw he plays the 4. He is big for his position though for sure. So maybe you can like in college he could get away with that, but definitely in the NBA he's going to be more of like a forward guard. You think Shea will willingly come to Toronto in the upcoming seasons? You know what's funny? I was actually having this discussion with a friend of mine, and he kind of sold me on it because put it this way, right? Like when a big name free agent enters free agency, like the Raptors are never on that person's radar. But the last time where we've had a superstar who's a Canadian was Steve Nash. And a lot of those years, the Raptors weren't a good team. But now we're in a position where Shea's a superstar. And once he's testing free agency, the Raptors might be a good team. So I will say this, if there's ever going to be a superstar free agent to choose Toronto over everybody else, he would definitely have to be from here. So I guess that gives the Raptors a shot from that perspective. Because that's the only way the Raptors are landing a big name free agent is if they're Canadian. It's just the reality, right? If Shea just wants to come home, win a title for his team. So once he started talking to me about that, I saw the vision. I'm like, I'm not going to rule that out. Yeah. Saturday Winters isn't having any of it. RJ is staying, being the leader scorer should come with some respect. Do you think Masai going to get a stretch big in the upcoming seasons? They seem pretty committed to Pirtle, which is interesting because a stretch big wouldn't be a bad idea with this group right now. If they want a max value for RJ, they could trade him draft night or summer because RJ's usage will go down next year and he won't be putting up the same numbers he's putting up now. That's a good point too. A lot of RJ's production too, you got to think it came when Barnes was out as well. Some of those bigger games that he had. And obviously Quickly's been out for like the majority of the season. So now you add BI, the production's definitely going to go down. But I think overall there's a level of there's a level of belief, I think, that this team hasn't had in a long time. Well, I said it earlier. Hopefully, Grady can be more consistent. You know, obviously he's not a long term starter. I think this is going to be good for him. You know, coming from off the bench once this team's fully healthy, kind of buying into that 6-man role. But yeah, for Grady, you just want to see more consistency and him being able to be like a shot maker, just being that weapon from downtown. Right? Like he was a highly touted sharpshooter coming out of college, and I think he can still show signs of that. Well, you don't know what your team's gonna look like, man. Like today's NBA is so different than when it was like 10 years ago. Like before, when you made a trade, like usually that guy would stick with you, but now like we're seeing it. Like there's roster turnover like crazy. Like, did you ever think the Mavs were going to trade Luka? Like, you know what I mean? Like some of these teams, they have looked completely different in the span of like 1, 2, 3 seasons. So I think nobody is truly untouchable anymore. Rosters are always changing. So it's no different for this Raptors team, right? It's a business at the end of the day. That would put him in a little bit of a pickle. uh Yeah, Ben Simmons to the Clippers. I think that's Ben Simmons' last chance to kind of show he can be valuable on a contender. I'm not calling the Clippers contenders, but they definitely have a chance to be a contender if Kawhi stays healthy. But yeah, it's interesting about Grady. He was deemed untouchable in that piece for Michael Grange. I wouldn't say Grady's untouchable. I guess he's untouchable from the standpoint where, like, if you're looking just at at the Raptors roster, like, he's young, he's raw, like, he's still super untapped, right? But definitely in the grand scheme of things, yeah, he's definitely not untouchable. Yeah, he hasn't been able to get it going, Ben. Hindsight's 2020. Like, you could say today you would, but I think at that time, Fred VanVleet, Siakam, and OG were the future of the Raptors. So to give that all up, or VanVleet and Siakam up, it was a dicey call for sure. It's a shame, man. Like, honestly, if you watch old Ben Simmons highlights, the dude was so good. Like, go watch Ben Simmons when he first started with the Sixers. You're like, is this the same dude that barely can even stay on a court now? Like, I know Colin Cowherd had the take of the century where he's like, LeBron, and I still can't believe it, but, like, crazy, right? He's like, LeBron, you had your time. It's Ben Simmons' time. Like, it's his turn. For as crazy and outlandish as that take is in 2025, at that time, with what Ben was showing he could do, and in his early days with the Sixers, like, it wasn't that crazy. Like, he really was a good player. I really don't know what happened with Ben. I think a lot of it was just mental for him. Like, yeah, like, Philadelphia was not a good spot for him to be in. But prime Ben Simmons, or like early day Ben Simmons, I know he's still not like old or anything. He was a prom. 3BQ. I like that. It's been going around on X or social media today, so I guess I'll throw it to you guys. What should Brandon Ingram's nickname be? I think I saw Notorious BI3. That's pretty cool. Was it what was the other one? The Riff Reaper or something? What should BI's nickname be? Raptors' next move is to play the draft lottery, play the tank game, try to get yourself or remain in the top 5, if not a little bit better. I think you can still potentially get to 4, but it'll be tough. Well, that's a pretty interesting correlation, but that would be correct. Yeah, BI number 2 from Duke, RJ number 3 from Duke. If they draft Dylan Harper, VJ Edgecombe, or Akachunas, I think it's possible IQ is moved instead of RJ. Yeah, that's going back to the discussion about who they draft and how that can mean the end of maybe one player's time here in Toronto. Wow, look at this stat that just popped up on my X feed, guys. You ready for this? Via StatMuse, or it's from StatMuse, somebody posted it. Brandon Ingram has 64 games played with 30 plus points. Wow. It's gonna be nice to have a guy who could get 30 points effortlessly. I know RJ's hit that a ton. Scotty, it feels like it's always a grind. I'm not going to lie. When he gets to 30, what's his career high anyway? It's not even that super, super high. BI's the opposite. Like, this guy can explode. I think his offensive production is going to be such a breath of fresh air for this Raptors team that legitimately hasn't had a score like this, like, since Kawhi. Like, I'm putting BI ahead of Siakam in terms of his, like, pure scoring ability and just being that, guy who could catch fire and close all games. I think everything's up for like, everything's on the table. I wouldn't say no to that. I think depending on what happens in the draft, maybe something happens in the summer as kind of a trickle effect. We should have traded Boucher for Sims. Well, we don't really know what was on the table. It hasn't been reported, but based on what Webster said, he said they like having Boucher around. Longest tenured Raptor, lone member of that 2019 team. So I'd be shocked though if they bring back Boucher, and I don't think they should bring back Boucher. Like, money's important now, man. You need that financial flexibility. Like, you're already in a tough grind as it is. So Boucher, we love you, man, but I'd be very surprised if he's brought back. I think they're just simply going to let him walk. Maybe a sign and trade scenario. They do have his bird rights, but yeah, I was going to guess 33-ish, 35. It's 35, you're right. He had that this year or last year against the Pacers. Well, this season in December. Well, going to the Kawhi thing, that is true because we started seeing like prime Kawhi in 2015-16. So that is when he was 1, 2, 3. That was his 5th season in the league. And then his 6th season, he really took off. And then obviously he was injured the following season. And then when he got traded, that was like prime Kawhi. So yeah, Kawhi really got started in his 5th season as being like a superstar. Well, it's either Boucher or Temple. I don't see them doing that with two vets. So it's either because Temple's a unrestricted free agent too. I know you can pay these guys peanuts, but every little amount's gonna add up. So we'll see what happens with the Raptors, guys. But I'm gonna end it there. Just wanted to do an impromptu, quick, hour-long stream. Really had a lot of fun talking to you guys about the Raptors and their next steps. If you're watching this on the playback, drop a like, subscribe. If you're watching this now, drop a like and subscribe. I'll be live again sometime early next week. The Raptors have 3 more games left until their week-long All-Star break. So it's going to be a nice little time to just chill and relax. But yeah, guys, really, really appreciate you guys hanging out with me on this Saturday. Keep it locked and loaded with this channel. You can follow my personal channel as well. And of course, follow me on X at Luca Rosano3. Appreciate all of you. Have yourself a great Saturday night. And yeah, I'll catch you guys again in the next stream. Peace out, y'all.